Guten Morgen. Guten Morgen. How's everybody doing today? Is that real? What am I looking at? All right. Let's share this out to a couple places. All right. Un momento, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, this guy. All right. It's 11 o'clock. We're starting late. I worked overtime again today. Trying to get that overtime going so we can get this computer finished. I ordered my operating system yesterday. I got the money to order the second monitor, but I'm going to hold off on that just so that I can put a little extra in the savings and maybe see, the problem is I could potentially get a 5080 on the 21st. Order a 5080 on the 21st. But the problem is I won't get it in time. I need to get the card and have the computer built by the 26th, or else I miss out on my free copy of Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, I don't know. I could just order the 5070 right now. I'd have to take money out of my savings, but I could put it back in on the 20th. 5080 would be nice. It would be nice. It's so expensive, though. It's so expensive. $1,500. It's crazy. But it would be nice. They say the 5080 overclocks like crazy. They were saying when it first came out and they were getting their like the first reviews of it, they were saying it's kind of a dud, especially for the overpriced, the fact that you can't get them at MSRP. The price, like the 5070 is a better value. 5080 is only 14% better performance than the 5070, but it's 24% more expensive. So they said it's better value to get a 5070 Ti. But now, after they've had some time to work with it, they're saying that it overclocks like crazy. Crazy overclocking. I don't know. I'll probably just order the 5070 on the 20th. It should hold value, so if I ever want to upgrade, I could just sell it. Get a better one. Probably what I'll do. But anyway, we got David today. David and Goliath. Really depends on what you're realistically going to do with the computer. Everything. everything. I'm going to be playing games while streaming, while talking on Discord, while browsing 100 different tabs, while having a music production, while having Fruity Loops open and a MIDI keyboard that I can just randomly start playing music on all at the same time. It's tempting to get the best line, but you might not need it. Yeah, I think I'll be fine with a 5070. That's why I got the 9950X instead of the X3D. The X3D is better for gaming, but the X is better for multitasking and what do they call it? Workstation stuff. I want it to be, it's not just gaming focused. So I think I'll be okay with a 5070. I just don't want to have to buy another one. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. Let's get into this. We're on chapter 16 of 1 Samuel. David's about to be anointed king. Graphics card won't matter for that. For video editing, it will. All right. Chapter 16. David's about to be anointed king. And then we're going to get David and Goliath. So let's get into it. Chapter 16. And the Lord said unto Samuel, how long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thine horn with oil, and go. I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite. Jesse is the son of Boaz, and his son is David. What up, Rome? I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons. And God provided a king among his sons. And Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, take an heifer with thee, and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord. Oh, this is important. This is when, so this is argued that this is a time that God tells Samuel to lie. Now, this is only a lie if you consider, and this is a kind of a feminist woman idea, but if you consider a lie by omission a thing, I don't even consider it a thing, but there's a thing, allegedly, called a lie by omission. Meaning, if you ask me, what did you do last night? And I tell you, I went to work. But I don't tell you how I got to work, what I did while I was at work. I leave things out. Tell me everything you did yesterday. And I tell you everything I did yesterday, but I leave one thing out. Does that mean I lied to you? Some people would say, yeah, that's a lie by omission. That's stupid. But basically, God is going to tell Samuel to omit something when he sees Saul to avoid being killed. Killed. So this is important here. Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, take a heifer with thee and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord. And call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show thee what thou shalt do. And thou shalt anoint unto me him whom I name unto thee. So he says, take a heifer with you for a sacrifice. when you go see Jesse. And also bring your vial of oil, which you're going to use to anoint the next king. So 2 things: heifer for sacrifice, anointing oil for David. And Samuel says, well, if I'm going to anoint a new king and Saul sees me, he's going to kill me. So God says, I got you, Samuel. I got you. I got a cover story for you. Some people, especially atheists, will claim this is proof that God tells people to lie. And Samuel did that which the Lord spake, and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming, and said, Comest thou peaceably? And he said, Peaceably. I am come to sacrifice unto the Lord. Sanctify yourselves, and come with me to the sacrifice. And he sanctified Jesse and his sons, and called them to the sacrifice. And it came to pass, when they were come, that he looked to Eliab, and said, Surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said unto Samuel, Look not on his countenance, or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. That's deep. So basically he's saying, don't look for the biggest, strongest guy. Don't look for the big, strong, handsome, kingly looking guy. And this is kind of, I don't know why the Jews don't see this. This is also prophecy of Jesus, because David is the beginning, like David is the direct downline to, leads to Jesus. Technically they all do. Abraham, as far back as Abraham, it all leads to Jesus. But David, you know, is a watershed moment in the Bible. It's an important event when David shows up. David is the man after God's own heart. And similar to Jesus, David doesn't look like a king. David doesn't. And same thing with Moses too. You see it with Moses, you see it with David, you see it with Jesus. Moses said, I'm not a good speaker. I'm not a good talker. You want me to lead these people? Like he didn't even think he had the ability to be a leader. But God appointed him the leader. Same thing with David. David's little. He's short. He's skinny. He's scrawny. He doesn't look like a tall, handsome, strong king. Same thing with Jesus. And this is why a lot of Jews reject him, is because they think when Jesus comes, he's going to be a king. He's going to be a great king that's going to have power and might, and he's going to be like a strong, handsome man like me. No, I'm kidding. But that's not what happens. They're all just regular dudes. Okay. The Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, Neither hath the Lord chosen this. Then Samuel made Shammah to pass by. What did I just say? Then Jesse made Shammah to pass by. And he said, Neither hath the Lord chosen this. Again, Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. And Samuel said unto Jesse, The Lord hath not chosen these. And Samuel said unto Jesse, Are here all thy children? And he said, There remaineth yet the youngest son. There remaineth yet the youngest. And behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, Send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, and withal of a beautiful countenance and goodly to look to. Oh, withal of a beautiful countenance and goodly to look to. So he was ruddy, and he was lacking a beautiful countenance, and he was not good to look to. Withal, and the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is he. They wanted a Chad king. Yeah, that's true. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. And Saul's servant said unto him, Behold now, an evil spirit from God troubleth thee. An evil spirit from God is what it says there. So God sent an evil spirit into Saul. I think I'm not gonna dwell on this too much, but if you've heard some of the debates I've had with people before and arguments I've had with people on the internet, I think a lot of people totally write off this idea that God controls evil things too. And maybe that's considered a heresy, but I don't know. That's just the way I see it. Because it says it so much throughout the Bible. So I can't write it off. I can't just be like, no, God's just a really nice guy. It's, but an evil spirit from God troubleth thee. Let our Lord now command thy servants which are before thee. So it doesn't say an evil spirit from Satan. It doesn't say Saul just became evil. Like he just suddenly decided to be evil. It says an evil spirit from God is troubling Saul. Let our Lord now command thy servants which are before thee to seek out a man who is a cunning player of an harp. And it shall come to pass, when the evil spirit from God is upon thee, that he shall play with his hand, and thou shalt be well. The harp player, is that going to be David? Good can't exist without evil. I agree. And Saul said unto his servants, Provide me now a man that can play well, and bring him to me. Then answered one of the servants and said, Behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is cunning in playing, and a mighty valiant man, and a man of war, and prudent in matters, and a comely person, and the Lord is with him. Wait. David's not comely and a man of war. David's like a scrawny little shepherd boy. Wherefore Saul sent messengers unto Jesse and said, Send me David thy son, which is with the sheep. And Jesse took an axe laden with bread, and a bottle of wine, and a kid, and sent them by David his son unto Saul. And David came to Saul, and stood before him, and beloved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, Let David, I pray thee, stand before me, for he hath found favor in my sight. Why do they say that David is cunning and a warrior? 1 Samuel 17, 16, 18. One of Saul's servants informs King about David, a son of Jesse, who is skilled in playing the lyre, a brave warrior, prudent in speech, and a handsome young man. Maybe I misread. Or maybe he's handsome, but he's not a warrior. 1 Samuel 16:12. Upon seeing him, Pascal describes him having a ruddy complexion, beautiful eyes, and handsome appearance. Oh, I guess he's not ugly, but warrior, handsome features, beautiful eyes, and a ruddy complexion. Maybe this is later? I want to say, look not on his countenance or the height of his stature. Hmm. Which is correct between NLT and KJV? Samuel 60. Is there a difference? Looks like there's some difference in the hermeneutics here between the NLT and the. Dude, I heard somebody say the other day. Well, I read somebody said in a chat if somebody went and wrote and added, it was some atheist in a chat, and they're like, if I went and changed the Bible and added this, all these Christians would just go along with it. And I'm like, are you an idiot? Do you not realize that the Bible is the most studied, translated, analyzed, scrutinized book in all of history? If you change one letter in the King James Bible, Christians will know within a day. Within a day, people will be talking about it. They'll be like, "Did you see this change?" Any changes made in any Bible, you can go and just look up differences in different translations. Like every little change that gets made, it gets recognized. There's versions of the Bible that are almost word for word exactly the same as the King James, but there's like 12 words throughout the whole Bible that are different. And people know. As soon as it was printed, they were like, "Hey, why is this word different?" Like, what do you mean you could just go make a new Bible and nobody's going to notice? People notice. Maybe dumb people don't notice, but in describing David's look, these Bible versions have different interpretations concerning his skin color. New Living Translation have him as dark, while King James Version as ruddy, which, though not cleared, some interpreted as reddish. Yeah, I would assume ruddy is reddish, which is right. And also there are some ideas that Samson actually had red hair, and also Esau would have had red hair. Furry guys with hairy, ruddy, reddish. So Jesse sent for him. He was dark and handsome with beautiful eyes. So he sent and brought him in. He was ruddy with bright eyes and good looking. The literal translation of the word, I can't read Hebrew. You need to put it in English. Is ruddy. It comes from the root, which is the color red. Actually, the same word used to describe Esau in Genesis. And I think that all translations agree that it should be translated as ruddy, as the text clearly connects it with the red stew Esau gulped down, and is also related to the etymology of the land of Esau or Edom, of which all share the same root. So, yes, I side with the KJV. What ruddy actually means is beyond the scope of question, but it does not mean that he was redhead, as commonly believed. It is more about skin color than anything else. Note in the Oxford Jewish Study Bible indicates that the Hebrew text of what is in brackets above is uncertain. Ruddy is an accurate translation, but if I understand the OSJSB editors, it is not clear that the Masoretic faithfully represents the Hebrew text. That having been said, the references to other Proto-Hebrew texts all seem to agree with Ruddy. The Septuagint, which is older than the Masoretic text, refers to some 2nd to 3rd century BC Hebrew texts and shows ruddy with beautiful eyes. The Latin Vulgate dates to the time of Jerome, shows missit ergo et adduxit erat autem rufus et pulcher aspectu decorac faci et ait dominus surge unge ipsa est enim. He sent therefore and brought him. Now he was ruddy and beautiful to behold, and of a comely face. So I guess David wasn't ugly. He was just small. But I don't know why why Saul's people are saying that he's a warrior. He's a shepherd. Maybe they just got some bad info. Anyway, wherefore Saul sent messengers unto Jesse and said, "Send me David thy son, which is with the sheep." Jesse took an ass, laid him with bread. We read this. And David came to Saul and stood before him and beloved him, and he became his armor bearer. He's the guy who carries his armor bearer. Pretty simple. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, Let David, I pray thee, stand before me, for he hath found favor in my sight. And it came to pass, when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took an harp and played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him. Chapter 17. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together. Oh, here we go. Here we go. It's about that time. The Bloods. Red and Ebonics would be the Bloods. Here we go. Get ready. It's about that time, boys and girls. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shokoth, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shokoth and Azekah in Ephes Damim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain. What did it never get? It never got to it never got to the part about oh, I guess that it's just that one verse. Sorry. We were going to talk about the lie by omission that God tells Samuel, and I thought that they were going to elaborate. I thought it was elaborated on more, but it's really just that one verse. Sorry, we got to go back. I thought we were going to get to that, but it doesn't expand on that at all. It's just one verse. And atheists will use this to say that God told Samuel to lie. And it's just one verse. It's just 16:2. And Samuel said, How can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, Take an heifer with thee and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord. That's it. That's the verse. So there's no more than that. But basically what it's saying is, he says, take the oil and go anoint David. And Samuel says, but if he finds out that I'm going to anoint David, Saul's going to kill me. And God says, well, take a heifer with you to sacrifice, and just tell him that you're going to sacrifice the heifer. Don't tell him that you're going to anoint David. Basically, that's the whole thing with the people say that God told Samuel to lie. Technically, it wasn't a lie, because he did sacrifice a heifer. He did take a heifer to sacrifice. And the heifer was a cover-up for what he was really there to do. And then if Saul asks him, what are you doing? You just say, I'm going to sacrifice this heifer. But really, you're going to anoint David. So do you think that that's God telling Samuel to lie? Is the question. But anyway, it's about to go down. All right. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side. And there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Remember, we talked about the 6. Is John Barrett still here? That's his favorite. 6 cubits and a span. So, and I think we've looked this up. He's like 9 foot 9 inches tall, basically. How tall is Goliath? I've looked this up before. I'm pretty sure he's like 9 foot something. Nine foot 9 inches. Yep. See, I don't have horrible memory. Probably because I've looked that up a million times before. 9 foot. You're slow, Robert. Already got it. He's almost 10 feet. And also, we're going to have to make note of this because later, I believe it's in Jude, there's a bit of a, and this is another reason, like, I'm not going to say that, but there's another verse that talks about David actually kills Goliath's brother. And I've heard somebody, I'll have to, when we get to that part, I'll have to read about it because I can't remember the explanation. But for some reason, later, okay, 2 Samuel 21:19 mentions a separate instance when Elhanan, the son of Jair, killed a Philistine. Most scholars believe this was actually Goliath's brother. 1 Chronicles 25 clarifies that Elhanan killed Lami, the brother of Goliath. But some translations make the story contradictory, because some translations write it in First Chronicles that David kills Lami. But David doesn't kill Lami. Lami is Goliath's brother. But there are translations that have messed it up. And this leads people to say, oh, the Bible's wrong. Because look, in 1 Samuel, it says David kills Goliath. But in Chronicles, it says that I forget how it goes, but basically one of the translations, it's like in one chapter, David kills Goliath, and in another chapter, someone else kills Goliath. Elhanan kills Goliath. But Elhanan didn't kill Goliath. He kills Lami, Goliath's brother. So when we get to Chronicles and to 2 Samuel, we'll mention this again and we'll go a little deeper into it. But for now, see, and look, when you look at it, the first video is from Dan McClellan. It says David didn't kill Goliath. Hold on, I want to listen to this. Dan McClellan, isn't he a Christian or is he he's one of them atheists that's trying to debunk Christianity? I can't remember.
Let's talk about one of the most famous contradictions in the Bible. Who killed Goliath? Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. And when we look in 1 Samuel 17, we get the famous story of David killing Goliath. And I want to focus on the way they describe Goliath. In verse 7, it says, the shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam. But something interesting happens in the book of 2 Samuel. In chapter 21, verse 19, we have a story about certain individuals defeating certain giants. And there's this reference to somebody named Elhanan, a Bethlehemite, killing Goliath, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. So this is quite clearly intended to describe the very same Goliath who is killed by David in 1 Samuel 17. So what's going on here? Well, let's take a look at another passage, 1 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 5. This is coming centuries after 2 Samuel was written. And here, the text states that Elhanan killed...
No. I'm looking at it right now. So I don't know what translation he's using, but I'm looking at it right now. 2 Samuel 21:19 says, and there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan, the son of Jehoiarib, a Bethlehemite, slew the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. Why did he skip that part? Again, there was with the Philistines, the brother of... So he's reading it right there. It's on the screen. Why did he not say that? It says the brother of Goliath. And wouldn't it not be likely that two brothers might share similar staffs? Or maybe after Goliath was killed, his brother took Goliath's staff. What is he talking about? Why is he skipping over that?
1 Chronicles chapter 20.
Hold on.
Beam. So this is quite clearly intended to describe the very same Goliath. And there's this reference to somebody named Elhanan, a Bethlehemite, killing Goliath.
Okay. So what he's showing 2 Samuel on his screen. You guys can't see my screen, but on his screen he's showing 2 Samuel 21:19. Let me show you what he's showing on his screen. This is what atheists do. People who want to debunk the Bible, they'll cherry pick, and they'll use verses. They'll sometimes go to one translation, then go to another translation to try to throw us off. But look at what he's showing on his screen. So his verse 19 says, "Then there was another battle with the Philistines at Gob, and Elhanan, the son of Jair Oregim, the Bethlehemite, killed Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam." Now I have it open right in front of me, and it says, "Slew the brother of Goliath." Now, the brother is in italics, which means that's not directly from the Hebrew. But what they're doing is they're drawing from Chronicles to get that. So let's see what Chronicles says.
Was like a weaver's beam. So this is quite clearly intended to describe the very same Goliath who is killed by David in 1 Samuel 17.
Okay, but my KJV, it says the brother, but it is in italics.
So what's going on here? Well, let's take a look at another passage, 1 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 5.
One second. 1 Chronicles 25. Pages are sticking together. 1 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 5. "And there was a war again with the Philistines, and Elhanan, the son of Jair, slew Lami, the brother of Goliath." This is not in italics. So he is correct that in the original Hebrew, since it's in italics, that means that if I were to look up brother in my, let's do this real quick. We're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out right now. I got too many. I need more bookmarks. Hold on. Put a bookmark here. We'll put a bookmark here. Now, I want to see if the word brother, I'm thinking, since it's in italics, it's not in 2 Samuel. It doesn't say the brother in 2 Samuel. So, I'm going to look up brother, and I'm going to try to see if it's in 2 Samuel. I'm guessing that it's not. So his translation is a more modern translation, and I'm guessing what they're doing is they're taking from 1 Chronicles, and then they're putting that into 2 Samuel. Breakfast, brethren, brother. Judges, Kings, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. What was it? 2 Samuel. What was it? 2 Samuel 20. 2 Samuel 20. Second Samuel 20. 21:19. 2 Samuel 21:19. Yep. So so I have the strong concordance. It does say brother, slew the brother of Goliath the Gittite, 2 Samuel 21:19, but there's no reference number. So that word brother, slew the brother, which is in italics in the King James Version of the Bible, is not in the original text. So it does say slew Goliath. But then later in 1 Chronicles, it's not in italics. So if I go to 1 Chronicles What verse is it? 25 and 6. And there was a war again with the Philistines, and Elhanan, the son of Jair, slew Lami, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, whose spear was like a weaver's beam. Brother is here, and it's not in italics, so I'm guessing brother, First Chronicles 25. First Chronicles 25, and it gives me a reference number 251, which we don't really need to do this part, but as expected, since it was in italics, it doesn't say brother in Second Samuel, but it does say brother in First Chronicles. And the Hebrew word there is, I don't want Greek, I want Hebrew. 251. I'll go way back to the beginning. 236. 251. The Hebrew word is ak. Prime word brother, used in the widest sense, relationship or metaphor, affinity, resemblance, another, brethren, brother, kindred, like other. Compare also the proper names beginning with ah or ahi. Ak means brother. Basic meaning represents a male sibling, a brother. So, what's he going to say about First Chronicles now?
This is coming centuries after 2 Samuel was written. And here,
No, I don't believe that. Centuries after? Chronicles. Not if, I bet you both manuscripts the oldest manuscripts come from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Oldest manuscript of First Chronicles. Text, 9th and 10th centuries, Aleppo Code. Oldest manuscripts are the Dead Sea Scrolls, which date back between 250 BC and 100 CE. And then I don't even need to look it up because we've already looked it up. The oldest manuscripts of 2nd Samuel and 1st Samuel are also the Dead Sea Scrolls. So so what's he talking about? All the manuscripts were found at the same time in the same place together. And as far as dating goes, who wrote First Chronicles? I think the same people who scribed 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings also did 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Who wrote First Chronicles? Which is Samuel, Nathan, and Gad. While it's traditionally attributed to Ezra, modern scholarship suggests it was likely written by an anonymous post-exilic editor who gathered and compiled various sources, including those from the books of Samuel and Kings. Ezra. The book of Nathan the prophet. Nathan is one of the scribes who worked on Kings and Samuel. So he also worked on Chronicles. The chronicler. That's Nathan and Gad. Nathan and Gad. Nathan and yeah, they're Samuel's scribes. Huh. So hold on, we gotta add.
Elhanan killed Lachmi, the brother of Goliath, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. So here is the Hebrew of these two passages. First in 2 Samuel 21:19 and below in 1 Chronicles 20 verse 5. And what I want to focus on is the Hebrew here, we have Beit Halachmi et. In Hebrew, this is Bethlehemite, and then the direct object marker et, which indicates the object of the verbal action, so who is being killed. Now, below we have et lachmi achi, and the Hebrew is very similar. You have lachmi, the last four letters of Bethlehemite, but instead of Beit Ha, you have the direct object marker moved to the beginning. And then instead of et on the end, you have achi, which means brother of. And the Hebrew here can look very similar, but only in the Aramaic square script, not in the Old Hebrew. And the Aramaic square script was adopted by Judahites during the Babylonian exile. So the confusion here is something that would not have taken place until the exile or later, which is when the book of First Chronicles was edited. In other words, whether it was in the chronicler's Vorlage or source text, or the chronicler made the change themselves, the alteration is something that occurred almost certainly in the editing of the book of Chronicles. It is
Okay, I want to watch Inspiring Philosophy's response to this. There's a lot on this. A lot of people are saying it was actually Elhanan who killed Goliath. Has this Bible contradiction been debunked? I want to see like Wes Huff. Inspiring Philosophy's probably got a.
One of the most famous stories in the Bible is when David faced off against Goliath and killed him with only a sling. The event is recorded in 1 Samuel 17, but if we read further, we encounter a problem. 2 Samuel 21:19 says someone named Elhanan killed Goliath the Gittite. A Gittite is someone who is from Gath, and the simplest reading is this would be a reference to the same Goliath that David killed in 1 Samuel. But Goliath could not have been killed twice. So many scholars have argued that Elhanan is really the one who killed Goliath. The great deed was later attributed to David, and a legendary tale was crafted. But 2 Samuel 21 preserves an early tradition of who really killed the giant. This would make the story of David and Goliath a myth. On the surface, this sounds plausible, but there is more to this story when we dive deeper. The text of 2 Samuel 21 reveals important issues that will ultimately lead to the conclusion that David is the original killer of Goliath and not Elhanan.
I can't listen to Dan McClellan too much.
Attempts to resolve the issue are
I don't know if I should do this now or do this later, but this is something I don't have a lot of time.
The Targum of Pseudo-Jonathan identifies Elhanan as another name of David. Some have suggested there may have been two Philistines named Goliath from Gath. Josephus simply omitted Elhanan's name in connection to Goliath. Most scholars today are not convinced by these solutions. First, the text of 2 Samuel 21 identifies David by name and says he was asked to not fight anymore by his men. What follows is brief accounts of David's men fighting on his behalf. There is also no indication this is a different Goliath, since he is identified as being from Gath. We also cannot simply ignore the issue, as Josephus did. However, when we read the parallel passage in 1 Chronicles 20, we find something interesting. It says Elhanan didn't kill Goliath, but killed the brother of Goliath, Lachmi. Many have suggested this verse preserves the original reading, and 2 Samuel 21:19 contains a scribal corruption. But many skeptics are not convinced.
Ooh, scribal corruptions can happen. Look at that.
And argue 1 Chronicles 25 is a deliberate change made by the author to resolve the issue we see in the books of Samuel.
But what is the same Arthur? We don't know that it's Ezra.
21:19 contains an early tradition. The deed was displaced and attributed to David, with legendary elements added in. But philosophically speaking, This is a more complicated explanation than positing a minor scribal error. One has to posit two traditions of who killed Goliath, one original and one legendary. The assumption the author of Samuel missed an obvious contradiction in his text, and that the author of Chronicles tried to fix the issue and invented a brother of Goliath. It is unlikely the author of 1st and 2nd Samuel would include such a verse after narrating the longer story of David and Goliath. Additionally, the work of scholars like V. Phillips Long and Kaspar's
Well, unless it was different, because there's multiple people that probably wrote 1st and 2nd Samuel. It's possible Samuel wrote this part and one of his scribes screwed up later. That's one of the possibilities.
Ozalinch add to this analysis and make the accidental scribal error explanation even more likely. If we put the text of the two verses on screen, we can see there are three differences: the identity of the father, whether the next word is an identifier of the hero or the name of the Philistine, and if it says brother or not.
Loud.
We'll go through these issues.
Why are you
one at a
shouting
time.
out other YouTube channels?
First, we must realize there's
Leah.
a textual corruption in the verse.
That's not good
entirely
etiquette.
divorced from the main issue. It says Elhanan was the son of Jair Oregum, whereas 1st Chronicles just says Jair,
Yeah.
which is likely a variant of Jair. The word Oregum means weavers, and it is the same word that is used at the end of the verse to describe the
weaver's
spear of
beam.
the Philistine. Given this is lacking in 1st Chronicles 20, Kaspar's Ozalinch notes it is unlikely the name of the father just so happened to have a part of his name be the same word that was used to describe the Philistine spear. Ozalinch notes it could have been added to the father's name by a series of scribal mistakes because of the similar way the lines end in Hebrew. He also notes the word is missing in a family of Greek manuscripts. As Dominique Barthélemy has noted, there is evidence in the Greek versions that at least the Antiochene recension reflects a Vorlaga, which lacks Oregum. So we already have good reason to believe there is textual corruption in 2 Samuel 21:19. Next, notice in the verse we see the Hebrew word et. This is a word that has no equivalent in English. It is used to mark the direct object of a sentence in biblical Hebrew. Visually, the word looks very similar to the Hebrew word for brother of, and they occur in the same part of the sentence in both verses. Visually similar words are most
So just by missing this little symbol, this little line right here, you go from et to ahi, which is et would be the direct object saying he killed Goliath. But if you add a little line here, it turns into he killed the brother of Goliath. That's interesting. That's interesting. So by scribal error, it could just be something as he missed a little line. He forgot to dot an I. And it changes from kill Goliath to kill. So Elhanan, son of Jair, Lami, kills the brother of Goliath with this little line. And without this little line, he kills Goliath.
naturally explained as accidental scribal errors. In other words, it is simpler to posit there is a scribal oversight in 2 Samuel 21 rather than it being a deliberate change in 1 Chronicles 20. Additionally, a scribe may have been expecting an et in this verse without thinking, because it is in the sequence that occurs in the prior verse. We see an et in this phrase after the identifier, so a scribe was probably expecting another et and not the word for brother of. The biggest issue is if the word should be Bethlehemite or the name Lahmi. Like with the prior issue we discussed, the words look similar in Hebrew, and they also sound similar as well.
And also, when they're translating this to English, they're looking at ancient manuscripts that have been buried in rot, like eroded away at, and you could easily mistake this for this. And the other one even easier. like a smudge of the ink or whatever. I don't even know what they were writing with back then, but a little smudge would change this.
V. Phillips Long points out that the only other Elhanan mentioned in the book of Samuel is identified as a Bethlehemite. Because of this, a scribe writing out the verse of 2 Samuel
Hey, giant, we all got
21:19
realized.
might have assumed
What?
that the word should be Bethlehemite, since in other places we see an Elhanan who is a Bethlehemite.
Wait, what did he just say?
Since in other places we see an Elhanan who is a Bethlehemite. Ozelinch argues the Elhanan of 2 Samuel 23 is the same Elhanan of 2 Samuel 21, and the different name of Dodo may be an alternative name of Jair, or an ancestral patronymic. This is plausible given the degree of variation of names in the text. But either way, there was a precedent set that the name Elhanan was associated with the identifier Bethlehemite. So a scribe could simply have overlooked this, and what would naturally follow in the Hebrew after this would have been an et, instead of the word for brother of. So because of all this, it is a parsimonious explanation that 2 Samuel 21:19 is the result of scribal corruption. 1 Chronicles 25 likely preserves an original reading.
Okay, so scribal corruption sounds really nefarious, but what he's explaining is that it could be a simple accident, it could be a simple mistake in the translation, or when he's writing, he's copying from something and he's reading, or when he's listening to the speech and he just misses a line, or just over time the way he wrote it looks different or it looks off. Basically, scribal error. Scribal corruption sounds like it's intentional, like you're intentionally trying to deceive people. But scribal corruption just means he made a mistake.
Phillips Long says, Bethlehemite in Hebrew differs in sight and sound only slightly from Lahmi, preceded by the Hebrew sign of the direct object, so that the Samuel reading could have arisen when a scribe, perhaps under the influence of Elhanan son of Dodo from Bethlehem, in 2 Samuel 23:24, the only other Elhanan mentioned in the Old Testament, mistook the rarer Lahmi for the more common Bethlehemite. With the loss of Lahmi as the direct object of the sentence, the phrase brother of Goliath could have been corrupted to make Goliath the direct object. A comparison of the two texts in Hebrew shows how slight the differences are. Some have argued this cannot be the case, because the name Lahmi is a ludicrous name that would mean my bread. Also, the Semitic name is not attested anywhere else. So 1 Chronicles 25 more likely contains the corrupt reading, and the original reading is Bethlehemite. First, merely rejecting the name because of what it would mean is not convincing, since one is not accounting for randomness, which often does occur in how names have formed throughout various cultures. Many popular names today have odd meanings left over from usage in languages. Second, this is a false dichotomy. Ozelinch has offered a third option. The original reading may have been Elhanan son of Jair, the Bethlehemite, struck down the brother of Goliath the Gittite.
Right.
A scribe working on 2 Samuel
Could be
mistook brother.
you could still have Lochmi and the Bethlehemite. He could be the Bethlehemite, and Lochmi could be the brother of Goliath.
Of for an et, and a scribe working on 1 Chronicles misread Bethlehemite for the name Lahmi. In the original reading, the giant's name did not need to be mentioned because his association with his brother Goliath was a good enough identifier. Plus, the following verse in 2 Samuel also leaves that giant unnamed as well, which adds weight to this hypothesis. Ozelinch says, positing a few scribal mishaps because of
He had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot.
similar Hebrew words is a better explanation than the idea we have competing traditions. One should always pay attention to text-critical issues, which is sometimes called lower criticism, before resorting to other types of higher criticism, such as the claim that we are dealing here with two different and contradictory sources or traditions. Second, only in limited cases did scribes make deliberate changes when copying the text in front of them. So we should be cautious before making such claims, unless there is very good evidence. Setting aside this explanation, one can still make a case for the name Lahmi. The lack of attestation to this possible name cannot be counted against it. The name Jer in the same verse is also not attested anywhere else throughout the Hebrew Bible. Neither are other names in the surrounding contexts. We can also go through the exhaustive dictionary of Bible names and see there are plenty of other similar types of names, such as a name that could mean my cloud, one that means my strength, or a name that could mean my father will help. We also see names that center around the importance of bread. Having a name based on the importance of bread would not be out of place in the ancient world, where bread was the main sustenance and was considered the blessing of civilization. Even with that, the author suggests the name Lahmi could mean a warrior or my war. And what we see in the Hebrew Bible could be a Semitic transliteration of the original Philistine name, or the author's best attempt at an approximation. However, even if one still cannot accept the name Lahmi, Ozza Lynch's explanation is still more parsimonious than positing contradictory traditions on who killed Goliath. That the author of Samuel concocted an elaborate story of David killing Goliath, then ignored the contradictory verse of 2 Samuel 21
in the
and
next
included it in his text, and that the author of 1 Chronicles 20 made a deliberate change to harmonize the
that's a
accounts.
Conspiracy theory.
Positing a few scribal
And Dan McClellan is the type of guy that would call someone a conspiracy theorist.
mishaps makes more
But when conspiracy theories fit his narrative, he's fine with it.
sense to account for the nature of these texts. Thus, given the data, the answer to the question of who killed Goliath is simple. It was David. It is more likely the original wording in 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles stated Elhanan killed the brother of Goliath. Scribal errors can account for this apparent contradiction.
What up,
And is the
RWG?
simplest explanation of the available data.
Okay, so we listened to both sides of the argument, and I think Inspiring Philosophy, knew much more about what he's talking about than Dan McClellan. We didn't watch the whole Dan McClellan thing, but anyway, that's the Dan McClellan's got the conspiracy theory that it's one of the biggest contradictions in the Bible. That explanation from Inspiring Philosophy was eye-opening to see that the difference between the direct what they call it, the direct saying he killed Goliath versus he killed the brother of Goliath is one little flick of the quill or whatever they were writing with. That one little missing piece changes it. So yeah, I'm going with the scribal corruption explanation. Anyway, where were we? Okay. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. And he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. That's a heavy cloak. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. It took one guy just to carry his shield in front of Goliath. Goliath's a monster. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants of Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. Choose your best man. Boagrias! You guys ever seen Troy? If he be able to fight with me, and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants, and shall serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard those words, of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons, and the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, and next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine out of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? Base David. Listen to David. David don't play. David said, Who's this uncircumcised guy that he's going to defy the armies of God? He ain't even circumcised. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. So they think, David, why aren't you watching the sheep? You came down here to see the battle. You're coming down here to rubberneck, David. I know you, David. What's up with the sheep? You need to be watching these sheep, boy. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. David is a boss. David ain't scared. Thy servant will go and fight with this uncircumcised Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against Goliath, this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he rose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. David's like, I kill lions, tigers, and bears all the time. I got this. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, Moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear. He will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. Dude, see, and this is why David is the chosen, the true chosen king, the man after God's own heart. Because like Abraham, David doesn't question God. David doesn't have any fear for anything but God. David's not afraid of men. David has faith. David knows, God's telling me I need to go murk this fool. And if God says it, his will be done. It's going to happen. David's not worried one bit. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon... David's too small to even carry Saul's armor on his body. He's going to take it off. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. I have not proved them. I have not proved them. 1 Samuel 17:39. I have not proved them means he's not worthy, or he's not strong enough. David attempts to wear Saul's armor, but ultimately rejects it due to unfamiliarity and the burden it represents. I have not proved them, meaning he's not comfortable with it. He feels uncomfortable. He's like, this stuff's heavy and bulky, and it's your armor. It doesn't fit me right. I'm not used to it. I need my agility, Saul. I'm taking this armor off. I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had, even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. This is kind of like, it's almost like cheating. It's like David's taking a gun to it. Even if it's a giant, David's basically got a gun. David's got a long range. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. It's interesting that Brick said, why does he bring 5 stones? Because Goliath had brothers. And I was just looking, and Goliath did have 5. Well, he had 4 brothers. There was 5 of them, which makes sense that Elhanan could have killed one of his brothers, and why they would all have similar staffs that are like weaver's beams. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. He's like, what are you, a handsome little boy? David looking like a sweet boy to Goliath. And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistines cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine cursed David by his gods, lowercase g. And the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts. Let's go. The God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defiled. Hold on. Am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves? And David said, thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defiled. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcasses of the hosts of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Dude, David is based. David's that dude. David is not playing. And all the assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. David's running into battle by himself, no armor, against a giant that everybody else is shaking in their boots afraid of. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone and slang it, and smote the Philistine in the forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. Boom! So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Didn't even need a sword. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. It's interesting. You could kind of like make like a kind of like an analogy here with politics, because I've heard people talk about, the sword of power and who wields the sword of power. Goliath wielded the sword of power. Goliath had the power and the authority, and he was a tyrant. David came weak and unarmed, and through the strength of God, slew Goliath without a sword. But then, what does David do? He picks up the sword and he cuts the tyrant's head off with the sword. So he took the power from the authority that wielded the power, and he wielded the power, and he cut off the head of the tyrant. I think that's an interesting little analogy there. What up, me, myself, and I? And the men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until thou came to the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way to Sha'araim, even unto Gath and unto Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine, and brought it to Jerusalem. But he put his armor in his tent. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. And the king said, Inquire thou whose son the stripling is. And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son art thou, thou young man? And David answered, I am the son of thy servant Jesse the Bethlehemite. Now, why? This must have taken place before David plays the harp for Saul. We must be going back in time. We're doing a little, because Saul knows who David is. David plays the harp for him, and that would explain why they say that David is a great warrior, even though he's just a shepherd. David playing the harp for Saul must have happened prior, or Goliath must have happened prior. I don't know. I'm a little confused here. Huh. Anyway. Oh man, it's already 12:30 and we only did 2 chapters. All right, we're going to just do one more chapter. Short day today because I had to work overtime. We'll do chapter 18. And then tomorrow, Saul's going to plot on David. I wish we could have got to that today, but we don't have time. So, no, he's going to plot to kill him right here in this chapter too. So, yeah, Saul's going to get jealous of David, of course. Chapter 18. And it came to pass, when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Jonathan, who's Jonathan? And Saul took him that day and would let him go no more home to his father's house. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was upon him and gave it to David and his garments, even to his sword and to his bow and to his girdle. And David went out whithersoever Saul sent him and behaved him. Oh, Jonathan was Saul's previous armor bearer. Yeah. Okay, yeah. And now David is the armor bearer. And David went out whithersoever Saul sent him and behaved himself wisely. And Saul set him over the men of war. And he was accepted in the sight of all the people and also in the sight of Saul's servants. And it came to pass, as they came, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women came out of all cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tabrets, with joy, and with instruments of music. These ladies. And the women answered one another as they played, and said, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very wroth, and the saying displeased him. The ladies like David a little more than they like Saul. Saul's not happy about that. Jonathan is Saul's son. Jonathan is Saul's son. Is he? I thought he was armed. Maybe you're right. Oh, yeah, it is Saul's son. Why were Saul and Jonathan so different in their relationship with David? Close friend of David, great strength and swiftness. Biblical narrative, the eldest son of King Saul. Okay, so he's not his armor bearer. My bad. Okay. Aha. Yeah, we read about Jonathan the other day. I just couldn't remember. Thank you, Anthony Hernandez. Where was I? Okay, Saul's getting jealous because the ladies are singing about David slaying 10,000 and Saul only slayed his thousands. Saul's not happy. Saul was very wroth, and the saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed unto David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day and forward. He's you eyeing me? And it came to pass on the morrow that the evil spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house. And David played with his hand, as at other times, and there was a javelin to Saul's hand. Saul's picking up a weapon. And Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David even to the wall with it. He's trying to pin David to the wall with a javelin, like Phineas did to that Amorite whore and that other guy way back when. And David avoided out of his presence twice. David's out here juking and dodging, ducking, dipping, and diving and dodging javelins. And Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him, and he was departed from Saul. That's a good reason to be afraid. Therefore Saul removed him from him, and made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. And David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Wherefore, when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David, because he went out and came in before them. And Saul said to David, Behold, my elder daughter, Merab, her will I give thee to wife. 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 He's giving him his daughter. Only be thou valiant for me. Did I not skip a page, right? They stick together sometimes. Only be thou valiant for me, and fight the Lord's battles. For Saul said, Let not mine hand be upon him, but let the hand of the Philistines be upon him. And David said unto Saul, Who am I, and what is my life, or my father's family in Israel, that I should be son-in-law to the king? Well, you're David. But it came to pass at the time when Merab, Saul's daughter, should have been given to David, that she was given unto Adriel the Meholathite to wife. And Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David, and they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. And Saul said, I will give her him, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. Wherefore Saul said to David, Thou shalt this day be my son-in-law in the one of the twain. So he thinks if he makes that the woman is going to distract David and weaken him, like we see a lot of women doing to a lot of men in the Bible. And also it's going to make David a target if he becomes Saul's son-in-law. So basically he's trying to set David up. And Saul commanded his servants, saying, Commune with David secretly, and say, Behold, the king hath delight in thee, and all his servants love thee. Now, therefore, be the king's son-in-law. And Saul's servants spoke those words in the ears of David. And David said, Seemeth it to you a light thing to be a king's son-in-law, seeing that I am a poor man and lightly esteemed? And the servants of Saul told him, saying, On this manner spake David. And Saul said, Thus shall ye say to David, The king desireth not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. So, that's crazy. Okay, so David says, How am I going to be his son-in-law? I'm poor. I can't be the king's son-in-law. And Saul says, You can be my son-in-law, and you don't even owe me a dowry for it. You don't even got to pay me to be my son-in-law, to be the king's son-in-law. All I want from you, David, is 400 Philistine foreskins. I want you to go out there and circumcise some Philistines and bring me back 400 foreskins. That's all you need to do, and then you can be the king's son-in-law. Saul thinks that this is a setup and that David's going to end up getting murked. But that's not the way it goes. I think David's just going to go out, and 20 minutes later he's going to be back like, Saul, look, I got your 400 foreskins. And when his servants told David these words, it pleased David well to be the king's son-in-law, and the days were not expired. Wherefore David arose and went, he and his men, and slew of the Philistines 200 men. And David brought their foreskins and gave them in full tale to the king, that he might be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal, his daughter, to wife. And Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him. And Saul was yet the more afraid of David. And Saul became David's enemy continually. Then the princes of the Philistines went forth, and it came to pass after they went forth, that David behaved himself more wisely than all the servants of Saul, so that his name was much set by. Dang. So Saul's out here trying to set up David. He says, Bring me 200 foreskins of Philistines, and you can marry my daughter. And he thinks David's going to die. And David just runs out, murks him some Philistines, comes back with a bag full of foreskins. Dude, David's a gangster. All right, we usually do 5 chapters a day, but we spent a lot of time looking at that explanation of the alleged contradiction of David killing Goliath, or Elhanan killing Goliath, or Elhanan killing Goliath's brother. We looked at the anti-Bible argument, and then we looked at an explanation of the scribal corruption. So we learned some things today. Here's your foreskins. Oh, I got you something as well. Here's a skin flip. We chopped off the whole thing. Okay, calm down. Hold on. I need to highlight this because that's crazy. Oh, and actually, he only asked for 100 foreskins, but David brought him back 200. Dang. David, like, not only is David a G, not only is he wise and he behaves himself and he's powerful and he's all these things, but also he's a hard worker. He does double the work required. Saul only asked for 100 foreskins and David brought him 200. That's crazy. All right. Chat, we usually start a little earlier. We usually do 5 chapters a day. We're only doing 3 chapters today because I need to get some sleep. I got to work again tonight. And I started late. And we spent a lot of time looking at that Elhanan, David, Goliath, brother of Goliath thing. So we spent a good bit of time on that. So I'm going to find somebody to raid you over to. AC, Jim Bob. I guess I'll send you over to Jim Bob. All right. I'll send you over to Jim Bob. Put some chairs in his chat. You know, all the good stuff. And I will see you guys tomorrow, and we'll do some more reading about Goliath. Hopefully Jim Bob doesn't end as soon as I send you over there, but thank you guys for watching. New people that I haven't seen here before, Anthony Hernandez, RWG, and Talio. Thank you guys for stopping by. We will be back tomorrow, and as long as I don't end up working overtime again, we'll get our 4 chapters in, maybe, or 5 chapters in. Maybe we'll do a couple extra chapters tomorrow since we only did 3 chapters today. But thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later. Say what up to Jim Bob for me. Peace.